Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow as he adjusted the small lamps over the medical table. The soft hum of machinery filled the quiet room, a sound he had grown used to over the years. He had always considered himself a healer first, not a hero, yet tonight something felt different. The alarms that had blared across the colony earlier were not ordinary malfunctions. He sensed urgency, though the details remained unclear. The call had come just before nightfall. An alien ship, belonging to a species he had only read about in textbooks, had crash-landed near the edge of the neutral space colony. Reports were frantic. There were survivors injured and in critical condition. Among them was their princess, Princess Lyra, poisoned by an unknown radiation that had seeped into the ship during the crash. Ethan knew nothing about royal politics, but he knew medicine. And right now, medicine was all that mattered. When he arrived at the crash site, the air was thick with smoke and the sharp smell of burned metal. Alien guards stood in rigid formation, their faces unreadable under their masks. Their species, the Velerans, were tall and elegant, with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Ethan's human heart raced, partly from fear and partly from the strange awe he felt at seeing royalty up close. The princess lay motionless on a stretcher, her silvery blue skin slightly luminescent under the flickering lights. The guards stepped back as he approached. One of them, taller than the others and clearly a leader, spoke in broken galactic common. Human. Healer, she, princess, and not survive. His tone was firm, almost accusing, yet Ethan understood the unspoken challenge. If he failed, it would not just be his life. It could affect his entire colony. Ethan bent over the princess, examining her carefully. Her breathing was shallow, irregular, but steady. Her pulse was faint, almost imperceptible. The poison was fast-acting, a combination of radiation and some alien chemical. He had never seen anything like it, but he had a basic principle that never failed. Observe, understand, act. He checked her vitals again, listened to her heart, and gently cleaned the burn marks on her arms. She needs calm, he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Panicking will not help. Hours passed like minutes as Ethan worked tirelessly. He prepared a mixture of herbs from his colony's stores, adapted them with some alien enzymes the guards had reluctantly allowed him to use. Each dose was calculated, each movement deliberate. The princess stirred slightly, eyelids twitching as though she were trying to escape a nightmare. "Don't be afraid," Ethan murmured, keeping his voice steady. "I'm here. You're safe." The words felt strange, almost foolish, as the princess's species did not speak his language, yet somehow she understood. Slowly, her breathing stabilized. Her fingers twitched. Ethan's heart leapt. It was a sign of life, of hope. The alien guards, initially tense and suspicious, began to relax, though their eyes never left him. They had seen humans before, but never in a role like this. Their histories told of humans as primitive and fragile, incapable of delicate skills like healing. Ethan was proving them wrong, one measured action at a time. As dawn approached, the room grew quiet, save for the faint hum of life support machines and the occasional click of Ethan adjusting the instruments. The princess finally opened her eyes, her gaze meeting his. There was no fear there, only a mixture of curiosity and gratitude. Ethan smiled gently, trying not to show the relief flooding through him. "How?" Her voice was weak, almost a whisper. The words were broken but understandable. She was asking how a human could save her. "I don't know," Ethan admitted honestly. "I just did what I could. I couldn't leave you to suffer." The princess studied him for a long moment, as if trying to comprehend the simplicity of his response. Among the Valorans, such humility was rare. They valued power, honor, and protocol above all else. Yet here was a human, calm and unassuming, who had risked everything without thought for reward. The alien leader, standing stiffly nearby, finally spoke again. "Human. Healer. You. Unusual. Trust. Difficult." His voice carried both skepticism and grudging respect. Ethan shook his head, refusing to take any credit. "I don't need your trust. I just need her to live." By mid-morning, Princess Lyra could sit up. She was still weak, but the worst was over. Ethan helped her adjust her position, careful not to strain her body. She looked at him once more, her eyes reflecting a mix of confusion and awe. "Why? Help me?" she asked again, voice stronger now. Ethan shrugged lightly, feeling the tension in the room ease a little, because someone had to, because it was the right thing to do. The princess said nothing more, but her gaze lingered on him. It was an unspoken acknowledgement, a connection that needed no words. News of the rescue spread quickly. Across the colony and beyond, whispers circulated. A human had saved a Valoran princess. Some laughed, calling it impossible. Others were intrigued, curious about this healer who had defied expectations. But Ethan remained focused on his patient, adjusting treatments and monitoring her vitals. He did not seek fame or glory. He simply did his job. Days passed. The princess regained her strength at an astonishing rate, thanks to Ethan's careful care. He taught her basic exercises to rebuild her stamina and introduced her to simple human foods that helped her recover. Despite the differences in species and culture, they found a way to communicate, sharing smiles and small gestures of understanding. Slowly, an unspoken bond formed between them, one built not on politics or obligation, but on trust and compassion. One evening, as Ethan prepared a final dose of a healing serum, Princess Lyra watched him quietly. Her expression was unreadable, yet her eyes betrayed curiosity. You don't ask for anything," she said softly. Ethan looked up from his work, surprised by the observation. "There is nothing I want," he replied. "Not from you, not from anyone. I helped because it was necessary." She nodded slowly, as if considering the weight of his words. For the first time, she understood something about humans that her royal tutors had never explained. Their courage and kindness were not tied to status or reward. It was innate. The colony continued its daily routines around them, but the focus was always on the princess's recovery. Guards remained close, though they allowed Ethan more freedom now, recognizing his skill and the quiet authority he seemed to command. They no longer watched him with suspicion, but with cautious respect. Ethan, meanwhile, remained humble. He organized her treatments, monitored her health, and even shared small stories about his life on the colony. The princess listened, fascinated by the simplicity of his world, a stark contrast to her own life filled with ceremonies, obligations, and expectations. By the end of the week, she could walk without assistance. Her skin glowed with renewed health, her posture was upright, and her eyes sparkled with life. It was then that the Valoran leader approached Ethan quietly. "Human, healer, you, remarkable," he said, his voice carrying a rare warmth. "Our people do not forget acts like yours." Ethan shook his head again, smiling. "I only did what any healer would do." The princess, standing nearby, looked at Ethan with a mixture of admiration and something deeper. Gratitude, yes, but also respect. She realized that in saving her life, he had done more than heal her body. He had restored her faith in life, in unexpected kindness, and in a universe where differences could be bridged through simple compassion. Later that evening, when the colony had quieted and the sky was painted with the soft glow of distant stars, Princess Lyra approached Ethan. She extended her hand, a gesture simple yet filled with meaning. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Ethan took her hand gently. "No thanks needed," he replied. "Seeing you well is enough." The princess studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps humans are not as simple as they seem," she said quietly. Ethan chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I hope that's a good thing." In the days that followed, the bond between them grew quietly, unspoken yet undeniable. The colony continued its work, unaware that history had shifted in a small medical bay. A human healer had done what many thought impossible, saved an alien princess with nothing but skill, patience, and compassion. And in doing so, he had planted the seeds of a friendship, and perhaps something more, that would reach far beyond the boundaries of stars and species. For Ethan, it was just another day. But for Princess Lyra, it was the beginning of a new understanding, that courage and kindness could come from the most unexpected places, and that a simple human could change the course of her life forever. The galaxy had never seen a princess like Leora. She was young, intelligent, and wise beyond her years. Yet she had a disability that made her stand out for all the wrong reasons in her society. Born blind, she had never experienced the beauty of her own world in the way others could. But she saw more than most people ever could, not with her eyes, but with her heart. Still, in the cold, calculating society of the Viren Empire, that mattered very little. To the other planets, a princess who could not see was weak. To her own people, she was a symbol of misfortune. Throughout her childhood, Leora had endured the pitying stares of strangers and the whispered mockery of her peers. Many suitors had been sent from neighboring systems, princes eager to gain her hand and with it the loyalty of her father's empire. But the moment they met her, they recoiled. The first time one noble turned his back and left her chamber, she had not cried. She had only closed her eyes, listening to the sound of his departing footsteps, letting them fade into silence. Each rejection had been like a sting, but it had also built a quiet strength within her. If they could not see her worth, she would show it in ways they could never measure. Her father, Emperor Talvor, watched all of this with growing concern. The empire was facing unrest at its borders, and alliances were fragile. He needed a marriage that could secure the loyalty of neighboring systems, but no prince or princess had dared to accept Leora's hand. She was intelligent, kind, and capable, yet her blindness made her undesirable in the eyes of the galaxy. Finally, in a moment of frustration, he decreed a universal invitation to all civilizations. The Viren Empire seeks an alliance. The one who marries Princess Leora will earn our trust and our strength. Only the brave and the sincere need apply. Days passed. Weeks passed. And still there was no response. Many laughed at the invitation, seeing it as a joke. Others ignored it, dismissing the princess as weak. Yet somewhere in a distant corner of the galaxy, traveling aboard a small, unassuming transport ship, a human named Ethan Ward read the announcement. He had been a soldier once, trained in the harsh realities of combat and diplomacy, and he had seen things most people would never believe. The invitation intrigued him, not for power, not for politics, but for something entirely different. Something personal. The words that caught his attention were simple, yet profound. She dreams of someone who sees her heart, not her eyes. Ethan had traveled across stars for many reasons, but none so unusual as this. He had no desire for titles, no need for riches, and certainly no interest in imperial politics. But there was something about Princess Leora's story that struck a chord deep within him. He could not explain why, only that it felt important. And so, against all odds, he set course for the Viren Empire. The first time he met her, the palace staff looked at him with disbelief. A human here, standing before the Empire's princess as if he belonged? Leora herself was skeptical. She had encountered many suitors, and all of them had treated her as less than equal. Some had pretended to be kind, only to reveal their true motives. Others had fled after a single glance at her blindness. But Ethan did something no one else had ever done. He placed his hand gently over hers, and in a quiet, steady voice he said, "I don't need you to see me. I only need you to know I am here." For a moment the room fell silent. The servants exchanged nervous glances. Even her father, who had seen countless dignitaries, did not move. Leora felt something shift within her. For the first time, she did not feel judged, pitied, or rejected. She felt seen. That feeling, more than any gift, any title, or any promise, was something she had longed for her entire life. As the days passed, Ethan remained at the palace not as a guest or a visitor, but as someone determined to earn her trust. He did not flatter her or make promises he could not keep. He listened when she spoke, even when others ignored her words. He learned her routines, her favorite scents, the sound of her laughter, and the rhythm of her steps as she moved through the halls. In return, Leora began to trust him. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel hope. Not everyone approved. The nobles whispered in dark corridors, mocking the human who dared to enter the Viren palace. "He is beneath her," they said. "A weak creature from a backward planet. She deserves a ruler, not a soldier." Yet despite their words, Ethan did not falter. He refused to be intimidated by their mockery. Instead, he quietly proved his worth by demonstrating skills that the Virens had never expected. Where brute strength failed, he used strategy. Where arrogance reigned, he brought humility. Slowly, whispers of doubt began to circulate among the nobles. Perhaps they thought reluctantly, this human was different. One evening, while the twin moons of Leora's planet cast soft light through the palace windows, a challenge arrived from a distant part of the empire. Ancient Viren tradition demanded that any suitor prove themselves through a series of tests designed to measure courage, loyalty, and intelligence. Many of the princess's past suitors had failed. Many more had refused outright. Ethan, however, accepted without hesitation. Leora watched him silently worried yet secretly thrilled. She knew the test would be dangerous, but she also sensed that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The first trial tested courage. Ethan had to traverse a narrow canyon while volcanic gases hissed from the rocks below. Viren warriors had failed before, falling into the churning molten river. Ethan, relying on human ingenuity rather than sheer strength, crafted a rope from his ship's supplies, using it to swing across gaps and navigate treacherous paths. When he reached the other side, bruised but unbroken, the crowd erupted in astonishment. Even the most skeptical nobles could not hide their admiration. The second trial tested loyalty. Ethan was led into a labyrinth designed to confuse and trap. At its center, a holographic image of Leora appeared, calling for help. Many suitors had abandoned the test, distracted by illusions or tempted by easy shortcuts. Ethan moved carefully, listening to the princess's voice, following the sound rather than relying on sight. He emerged from the labyrinth with his focus unwavering, proving that his dedication to her was absolute. The final trial, intelligence, challenged his ability to solve complex problems under pressure. Viran elders presented him with a puzzle that required logic, speed, and insight into Viren history. Many candidates failed because they could not think beyond brute force or tradition. Ethan, however, approached it as he had approached life itself, methodically, patiently, with creativity. Within hours, he solved the puzzle, earning quiet respect from those who had doubted him the most. As he passed the trials, the people began to see a new kind of strength. It was not the kind that came from muscles or beauty, but from courage, loyalty, and an unwavering sense of honor. Leora felt her heart swell with pride. She realized that she was no longer the cursed princess. She had found someone who saw her as she truly was, someone who could match her in spirit even when they were worlds apart in origin. But not everyone was pleased. Within the palace walls, hidden factions plotted to prevent the marriage. Some nobles feared losing power. Others envied the princess's rising influence. And yet Ethan and Leora remained undeterred. They had forged a connection that went beyond politics or appearances, one that could not be broken by fear or jealousy. One night, as they walked through the palace gardens, Ethan gently took Leora's hand. "I know the galaxy sees you differently," he said softly, "but I see you as you are. Nothing more, nothing less, and that is enough for me." Leora felt tears well up, but she did not need to see them to know that he meant every word. For the first time in her life, she felt truly understood. The palace whispered, the nobles muttered, and the galaxy watched. But Leora no longer felt the weight of judgment. She had chosen to trust, and in doing so, she had discovered something more precious than any throne. A human who saw her heart, not her eyes, and loved her for it. And though the road ahead was uncertain, she knew one thing for certain. Together, they could face anything. The stars above glimmered as if acknowledging the start of something extraordinary. A blind princess and a brave human, united not by duty or obligation but by respect, courage, and a bond that could withstand the galaxy's harshest tests. And in that moment, for the first time, Princess Leora felt truly seen.